Coming off the most successful 3-year run in program history, in which the team won at least 20 games each season, the Ashford men's basketball team will be in transition this year after graduating 6 seniors. Despite the new lineup on the floor, third-year head coach Oliver Drake knows that to continue their recent success, tradition can't graduate.
Well, I think the transition's gone pretty smooth. Obviously, we lost a great nucleus last year with 6 seniors and 6 guys that have kind of set their mark on Ashford basketball history with the 2 best seasons in school history. So we had to replace a lot of guys, a lot of leadership, obviously a lot of production. But nothing's changed within our system, and what we've preached to our guys, it's all about our system, and it's all about just sticking new pieces in place. And I think our young guys and our transfers and obviously our returners setting the tone with how we want to play.
Drake's squad returned 6 members from last year's team, with 2 of those returners, and senior Vestian Svensson and sophomore DeAndre Lowry Jr. seeing the most floor time. As each man gets set to don the purple and gold once again, they will be counted on to lead by example on the floor and play a system that emphasizes defense and execution.
Well, now obviously we depend on them a lot more for scoring. They were very capable scorers last year. It's just a role they knew they didn't have to take initiative on, and the way they got on the floor last year was defense, taking care of the ball, rebounding. So it's really good to return 2 guys with really, really good playing experience, and 2 guys that truly get, understand the little things and how much those can play a part of making the big things happen. And those 2 guys are, do a great job of really defending and buying into everything that we want to do here at Ashford.
With 10 new faces to this year's team and 85% of last year's scoring graduated, the new Saints will have the opportunity to contribute immediately. It's a daunting task for the newcomers, but their coach has been impressed with their transition into the program thus far.
We have some pretty nice newcomers, some guys that I think are going to have some pretty special careers here at Ashford. I think the guys are really starting to pick up on some things, and things are starting to come together, but it's certainly, like we keep telling our guys, it's going to be a process. It's going to take some time, and how quickly that process takes will totally depend on how much they buy in and how quickly they buy in. But thus far, we've been pleased with their efforts.
Another new challenge facing the Saints this year is a transition into the AII Conference. In the past, the team's focus has been on games played against conference opponents, but the new conference format puts an emphasis on the entire season, something that will demand focus from the Saints each time they step on the floor.
Every game now is a conference game, the way our schedule is set up, and with the new conference, every game counts versus typically in a conference play, it's just conference games that determine your seeding. Here now, all 30 of our games determine our seeding. We're excited about that. We think it's going to be the best way to get our program where it needs to get to.
This year begins a new chapter in the program's history, and to achieve the success of the past, the Saints must remain focused on the present.
Our last 2 years are just that, last 2 years. Nobody cares what we did the last 2 years, and this is time for our newcomers and our returners to understand that we've started something that we think is special here.
Ashford opens the regular season on October 31st at the University of St. Francis. Coming off a season in which they improved by 6 wins, the Ashford women's basketball team looks to take yet another step forward in the 2012-2013 campaign. While the season is still young, third-year head coach Amy Egan has been impressed with how her squad has handled themselves in the season's infancy.
For being in there for a couple weeks, we've had a couple scrimmages, and we're seeing some flashes of some good things, but I still think we have a long ways to go. Obviously with 2 weeks, you can't get everything in offensively and defensively, so we got to continue to build every day and try to get better every day with our team.
One advantage to this year's team is the amount of experience that was gained last season. The Saints returned 9 members from last year's squad, including all 5 starters. With a year under their belts and a heightened sense of leadership from the returners, the demand from within has taken on an entirely different look.
I think our kids that are returning have a different focus about them this year. Where last year was so much new stuff that they kind of struggled with a lot. We've had a ton of returners step up this year. Last year we struggled with a lot of leadership because they were all so new and we're learning the system, and they didn't know if what they were saying was the right thing to say. Some of our kids that were freshmen last year that are now sophomores are taking on a little bit more of a vocal role too, which is good to see, and we got to continue to do that as well.
With the large number of returners that saw important important minutes last year, as well as an influx of newcomers pushing them for playing time, Egan has a slew of weapons at her disposal this year. With a larger number of players capable of handling big minutes, the Saints' depth will be a major factor in keeping everyone fresh for crunch time.
I think our depth this year should be a big difference. With having the returners and then throwing in a lot of kids that are able to get into the mix now, I think, where we had kids playing 38 minutes a game, I think we can cut that down and get them even more productive within like 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes a game. So I think we should end up having more depth if we could stay healthy this year. So I think that'll be a big difference that'll carry us down the stretch.
This year will also mark the Saints' inaugural campaign as members of the AII Conference, where every game has postseason implications. With a handful of ranked opponents and a few tournaments on the docket, every member of the Saints knows that taking one game off could be the difference between making or missing the conference tournament.
We built our schedule, I think, pretty tough, and I think that's going to prepare us for down the road. Obviously, we want to get to the conference tournament, and we want to be one of the top 6 in AII. And presenting that to our kids and hoping that they understand that every game is important is something that's a challenge for us as coaches. We now don't have the non-conference schedule to prepare for conference. We got to be ready every night. And our kids will understand that, and we'll make sure that they are ready every night and prepared to step out on the floor.
Ashford opens their season at home against Roosevelt on November 1st. Although they are still 1 month away from opening their indoor season, the Ashford track and field teams have been hard at work since training began, and that has fifth-year head coach Chris Adams optimistic about the upcoming season opener.
Practice has been going great so far. We're just getting through the majority of our time trials, and those have looked really good. We've changed them up a little bit from last year, but they responded well to them. So we've got some new kids that have come in that have looked really good, and the returners have bested their times from last year, so it's nice.
An added help to Adams and his coaching staff is the bevy of returners from last year. Ashford sent 17 student athletes to the national championships last season and will be looking to repeat that success this year. For the women, the journey begins with filling open spots in relays, as well as getting key individual contributions from everyone on the team.
We've got some people that are going to do some different things. We qualified relays, indoor and outdoor, and we lost a couple people from those relays, so replacing them is going to be not a struggle, but obviously it's, anytime you replace someone, it's going to be a little bit tougher. We've got at least one spot up for grabs on those relays still, and but we've got some people that can fill those spots in, so that'll be nice. But we've got I think we'll get a few more individuals on the women's side. Women's throwers are looking really good so far in the fall, and that could be a nice boost for us as far as getting some qualifiers in.
On the other side, the Ashford men return a strong group from last year, headed by senior Ed Awa and sophomore Mike Malone. A deep team, Adams feels that the drive from both the individuals and relay squads will give the Saints a great chance for some return appearances to nationals.
I think on our men's side we've got some interesting depth that's here. I think we may have a shot to get some stuff done in some relays, like the 4x4 that we've always kind of been knocking on the door with, and this year, depending on if we do what we want to do, we can get there.
Even with a move to the AII conference, the main focus throughout the year is to qualify for nationals. The Saints will have that opportunity throughout the season with a schedule similar to years past. The push towards nationals begins when indoor season opens on November 30th at the Fighting Bee Frigid Invitational in Sterling, Illinois. As they enter the program's third season, the Ashford bowling teams look to take another step forward in 2012-2013. With no graduating members from last year's squad, head coach Brian Swanson has benefited from a group that is familiar with playing amongst each other.
Yeah, it's definitely helped out a bit. It's nice to not have to walk every student through every single process. Some of our second, third year kids are stepping up and taking that leadership role, and that's nice to see. So to have some coaches, as players and out there doing their thing makes a big difference.
The men's and women's teams have already competed in 2 meets this year, one of those being an impressive showing against some of the nation's top teams at the Midwest Bowling Classic, in which junior Tricia Zimmerman finished 33rd overall for the women. Those same women placed 3rd at the NAI Invitational to close last year and have carried that momentum into this young campaign.
Basically, since that NAI tournament, we've only bowled the 2 events, but 2 out of the last 3 events we've finished in the top. Last week in Peoria, we ended up 4th over the qualifying through the tournament, and then we ended up getting eliminated in the first round of the knockout rounds. But that's 2 tournaments out of 3 that we've really had some success. So yeah, I think that they're kind of using that a little bit as momentum going into this season, and it'll be interesting when we get to some of the tournaments down the road that I really think we can do really well in.
For the men, they also had a positive close to last year, battling back in the knockout round to take 9th place at the NAI Invitational. Despite the finish, Swanson thinks that the way the season ended last year will be beneficial to the team's progression this year.
I think it was a tough pill for them to swallow. They put themselves in a very sticky situation going into double elimination. We kind of got stuck with some tough draws, and I think it was a great learning moment for our kids, and knowing that you can't just wait till the end and throw it out and hope for the best. I think it was a good way to close the season from a coach's standpoint. I don't know if it was the best way to close the season from a player's standpoint. I think
Schedule for the Saints will continue to challenge the squad this year, with chances to prove themselves against more of the nation's top teams as they prepare for this year's NAIA Invitational in Indianapolis. Next up is a trip to Milan, Illinois and Davenport, Iowa for the Leatherneck Classic starting on November 10th.